Howdy folks, it's me, Josh, and it's finally time. Once again, if you can remember, almost a year ago, I put out a video asking the question, what if Theodore Roosevelt was never president? And in that video, I remarked that
the dude was just so cool and did so many interesting things during his life that there's absolutely no way I'd be able to do it justice by cramming it all into this one video.
And prompted people to comment Old Lion if they wanted to see a full video. And, yeah. So now, without further ado, let's talk about the life of Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt was born on October 27th, 1858 in New York City, and just to put into perspective just how short American history really is, this means that Teddy Roosevelt was around before the Civil War and was born only 21 years after the death of James Madison. Wow. Anyways, Teddy was part of a very rich family. His mother came from a wealthy Southern family, and his father, Theodore Roosevelt Sr., was a wealthy Northerner who always wanted to help people who couldn't help themselves. Teddy, who in his youth was called TD, was a very sickly kid, largely suffering from asthma. The boy, even from a young age, already had a knack for hunting, killing many small animals and keeping their specimens in his room. Needless to say, people weren't quite fond of the smell. However, during the Civil War, relations in the Roosevelt house grew quite tense, with his family being split between Northern and Southern heritage. Teddy, though, hearing of the conflict, envisioned a dream of achieving glory on the battlefield to serve his nation. By age 13, Teddy's condition worsened, with his family realizing that he was extremely nearsighted. They remedied this by giving him thick spectacles, with his father telling him, "You have the mind, but you have not the body. You must make your body." And so, Teddy started down his path of passion for physical activity. Several years later, Theodore decided to attend Harvard University, starting in 1876, wishing to study natural history, hoping to one day become a teacher. Once he got to Harvard, though, he realized he didn't quite fit in. He acted differently, dressed differently, and his room, once again, was filled with dead animal specimens. In class, he would frequently ask questions, with his natural history professor at one point bursting out, yelling, "Now look here, Roosevelt, let me talk. I'm running this course." In 1878, though, Theodore's life would change forever with the death of his father. Theodore would remark that his father was the greatest man I ever knew. And to make his father proud, he decided to go back to college and change his studies to government and history in order to pursue a career in public policy so that he could help those who couldn't help themselves. A year later, Theodore met the woman who would be his wife, a woman named Alice Hathaway Lee. He eventually managed to convince her to marry him, with him getting married on his birthday, October 27th, 1880, shortly after he graduated. Teddy tried to start law school at Columbia University, but upon realizing that he was trying to start law school, he found it so boring that he used his time to write a book before dropping out after one semester. In 1881, Teddy would begin his long political career, being elected to the New York State Assembly. However, with his refusal to follow along with the party bosses, he would eventually be ousted, but not before going on a vacation in 1883 to Dakota, where he would buy himself a cattle ranch. Later that year, 1883, Teddy, after taking a tour of a cigar factory, began to realize the terrible conditions within U.S. labor. It wouldn't be long before the year 1884 came upon Roosevelt, which would turn out to be the most depressing part of his life. After the birth of his first child, Alice, whom he named after his wife, both his wife and his mother would pass away. He was so distraught with grief that he said that the light has gone out in my life. He left New York politics and retreated to his cattle ranch in Dakota. He lived as a cowboy out there for 2 years, giving him time to do some serious soul-searching and thinking on where he would be taking his political career in the future. Teddy finally made his grand return to New York politics in 1886, where he would run for mayor, even though he knew he would lose. During this time, he met back up with an old friend of his, a woman named Edith Kermit Caro, who would become his second wife, with whom he had 5 children. Not long after, Theodore would be appointed by President Benjamin Harrison to the Civil Service Commission, where he would push through important reforms such as having government jobs be given out based on merit. He held this job until 1895, at which point he resigned in order to become the police commissioner in New York City, where he continued his work to have jobs be given out based on merit. It wouldn't even be a year later, in 1896, when, after campaigning for William McKinley, McKinley agreed to appoint him as Assistant Secretary of the Navy. Teddy knew the importance that the Navy would hold for the US to become a global power, so he used his position to strengthen the Navy and get the US ready for what he knew to be an inevitable war with Spain. His efforts paid off when, in 1898, the Spanish-American War broke out, and Teddy would resign his post to go off and fight on the front lines. He became a lieutenant colonel in the army, leading a volunteer cavalry brigade known as the Rough Riders, in which he would finally achieve his dream of achieving glory on the battlefield as he led his men to charge up San Juan Hill. Teddy was welcomed home as a war hero and was immediately swept by popular demand into running for governor of New York, which he won. However, the Republican establishment, particularly Chairman Mark Hanna, weren't quite as thrilled, and so, in 1900, despite Teddy being confident he could win a second term as governor, the party instead nominated him for the one position he didn't want: vice president under William McKinley. Mark Hanna, however, was less confident in this ploy to get Roosevelt out of power, remarking that there's only one life between that madman and the presidency. Teddy reluctantly agreed to run for vice president, hoping that he might be able to seek the presidency in 1904. After achieving victory in this election over William Jennings Bryan, Teddy was sworn in as vice president of the United States in March of 1901. It wouldn't be 6 months, however, when, during a visit to the Pan American Expo, William McKinley was shot and killed, and Theodore Roosevelt, Little T.D., was sworn in as President of the United States. As I said, the life of Theodore Roosevelt is probably one of the greatest true stories in American history. It's a story of tragedy and loss, but also a story of resilience and strength, from the day he was born to the day he died, showing great strength in everything he did. Teddy truly was the man in the arena. So, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to stick around and maybe subscribe or something. So, that's it for today's video. Well, till next time, see ya.